That was
Crazy.
that was a long time ago. But man, you got quite a story. I'm looking forward to getting into it. So thank you for taking a minute out today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we get into your life and all these adventures that you've been through, I want to know 4 years ago, we were all trying to figure out when this pandemic was going to end, how are we going to get through it? How did you survive that time period and how did it change the way that you do things now?
Business wise?
I mean, the Venn diagram kind of bleeds into itself a little bit, I think, probably more business wise, but overall.
Okay. I mean, personally, my life has been one big constant ball of change from, my parents divorced when I was 11 and how traumatic and violent that was to going to the military, being injured in the war, making a life for myself after the war. It's just, you adapt to things. As far as business, because I'm a professional speaker, back in 2020, obviously, my calendar got wiped clean overnight. And that was actually the same week that my wife and little girl were in a horrible car accident. And so, yeah, it was quite a year.
Wow. So I want to get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis right now. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of grade school kids, third graders. It's career day. And one of the kids is curious and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
People pay me to talk to them.
Okay. So tell me your story. What do they want you to talk about?
As a professional speaker, I talk about resilience and overcoming change because life is full of all kinds of things we don't anticipate. And a lot of people don't know how to overcome the unexpected changes they face in their lives. And so I use my own life experience and what's worked for me, as well as what I've learned from other people to share that message and share that information so that people can overcome whatever challenge or change they're facing in their lives.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
To be in the military.
Okay, so you lived the dream. So take me back to your military days. Take me back, actually before that, take me back to where you were born and raised and how these seeds of getting into the military and being resilient and growing into who you are now. How did that happen?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Jackson, Michigan, which is southern Michigan, about an hour straight west of Detroit. And I grew up with an older brother, 18 months older, and we'd go out in the woods and we would turn sticks into machine guns and rocks into hand grenades. And it was sort of a sign of things to be because he went in the Marine Corps and I went in the Army. And it's growing up, we fought a lot, and that's kind of what we did. We were boys, and it sort of led to where I went in the military because when I went in the military, it was right after high school in 2003, pretty recent after 9/11 happened. And so, yeah, I felt led I was supposed to do that with my life at that point, and so I did.
So who's been a hero for you? Who's been an inspiration for the work that you do and who you've become?
The biggest hero in my life was a guy named Dave Reaver. He's one of my best friends to this day, and he's the guy who found me when I was at the hospital in San Antonio, Texas, recovering from a suicide bombing attack in Kandahar when a suicide bomber tried to kill me. And he taught me how to use my story, how to tell my story to people, not just to talk about myself, but to say what I do and talk about my life story and what I've overcome from a position of value, so it helps other people to help it because it helps them win their battles because everyone's facing a battle. So he taught me how to take this horrible thing that happened in my life and use it from a position of value that helps the world be a better place and it helps people do better.
So, I hear about situations like this where people get really close to leaving this planet. And there's always this one person that's almost like an angel that comes down and totally does things that's unexpected. Do you see him as this role in your life?
Oh, absolutely. He didn't just change my life, he changed my family tree. My family tree was transformed because I met this one person. And the thing is, I'll take all the credit for all the work I ever do. I work my ass off. But when it comes to me and how I met him, I did not control that. That was not anything in my own doing. That was like the sun, the moon, the stars, and the universe, and all the galaxies aligned, and our paths collided. And so I can't take credit for meeting him, but it was, the single most transformational person I've ever met that helped me transform my life.
So are you still in touch? You guys still tight?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now that you find inspirational, who would it be? Who would you love to meet and talk to?
Man, there's A lot of weird people I'd love to meet. Prob Probably Elon Musk, and
Okay.
the reason for that is just because from what I understand about him, he seems to be a very open-minded, anything is possible kind of person. I'd like to learn how people think, and he's obviously a billionaire, and I like to rub elbows with those people and also learn more about how they think and how they perceive the world.
So how close did you come? How close in that bombing did you come to leaving the planet? What were kind of the circumstances?
Yeah, I was in the front passenger seat of my vehicle, and a suicide bomber in a minivan drove his minivan into my door and exploded. So he was about 3 feet or less away from me, but I had a bulletproof glass for windows. I had up armored Humvee, so armored doors. And when it happened, I ended up waking up on the side of the road on the side of Highway 1 in Kandahar. I was burned second degree on my face and neck, which is healed, third degree on both my hands, and I spent 14 months at the medical center back in San Antonio, Texas, after getting medevaced out.
Wow. Did you see any light or anything? I mean, was there anything that was an indication that you were close, or was it just it happened so fast, probably memory was lost?
No, I remember everything was fine, and then like it was like blinking my eyes. When I blinked my eyes, I suddenly went from everything being fine to laying face down in a ditch on the side of Highway 1. I didn't know anything happened until I woke up.
Wow. So let me ask you this, as somebody that gets up in front of people and speaks and motivates people and inspires them, what's the best speech you've ever seen? Who's the best speaker or inspirer of you?
Man, that's such a good question because there's so many good speakers. I'll give you the first one that comes to mind. There's more than one answer, but the first one that comes to mind is the guy who was my mentor, Dave Reaver. And the reason I say that is because he was injured in Vietnam horribly by a phosphorus grenade, burned, disfigured, very successful as a speaker, very successful in his marriage and life. Uh, the thing about his speech that I recognized was that he couldn't talk about pain without making you laugh hysterically because he is so good at cracking jokes at his own story and giving people hope through that and making it more lighthearted and communicating hope. And that is just such a transformational thing to witness.
So what is the inspiration? What is the motivation for you every day to get up and to do the work that you do, to persevere, to inspire people, and to also hold enough back to evolve as a human being yourself?
Yeah, I'd say the big thing that drives me is the thing I discovered when Dave put me on that first stage of his. He pulled me up on stage in front of 3,000 people, and I didn't know he was going to do it. I'd only been home from the war 6 or 7 months, and I was still in burn bandages from the injury. And I spoke for about 2 minutes, and I got off stage, and this young lady came up to me, and she was in her mid 20s at the time, and she told me about how she had been raped and molested a bunch as a kid and then as a teenager, and how her boyfriend was abusive, and she tried to kill herself 2 weeks prior to meeting me but failed suicide. And then she said, but Brian, she said, if you can get through all that, referring to my Afghanistan injury, she said, I think I can get through this. And I realized in that moment, this young lady's not gonna go home. She's not gonna put a pistol in her mouth and pull the trigger. She's not gonna drink a bottle of pills. And I didn't have any advice for her in that moment. It was a very quick interaction, but she realized that she's not the only one suffering, and that gave her hope. And what it did for me is it gave me a sense of meaning in my suffering. Somebody was just helped because of this horrible pain I went through. And so that became something I got addicted to. I want to find more people. It was meaningful to try to go find them and help them with what I knew and what I was going through.
So you're speaking about advice. What's the best advice you've ever gotten in your life?
Oh wow, the best advice. I've gotten a lot of advice, and most of it's been pretty bad. Boy, that's such. I'm trying to think offhand. The best advice I've ever been given. I think the best advice is trust yourself. I was raised very religious and taught that you can't trust your heart. It's deceitful. It's wicked. I've trusted my heart several times, and every major time in my life, I trusted my heart and I went against what I was taught in that area. I've succeeded wildly every time. And so, trust yourself. You know what's better for you than most people do.
So Everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, everyone you speak to, but ultimately you drive the bus, you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm just I'm just a guy who's doing the best he can to make the life I have count, and trying to be better every day. Just trying to be better at what I do, trying to find whatever next thing I'm doing, or just figuring out what I want to do next, or how I want to alter what I'm doing next. I'm an extremely creative person, I've discovered, and that's one of my bigger uh, driving factors in life, is just discovering I'm an extremely curious person and a highly creative person. And I don't even try. It just goes. It's how I think.
So, of everything that you've done and overcome and evolved into, what are you the proudest of?
I would say the thing I'm proudest of most in life is where I've been able to lead my family, particularly my wife. We've been married almost 19 years. We got married 3 months before I went to Afghanistan, and we've been we I used to hear people say, we love each other more now than we did years ago. I never used to believe that, but I've been able to help her to a place of healing in her own life, and it's made us closer than we ever thought or knew was possible, and we were already doing amazing. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest, best accomplishments or meaningful things to me, is that I'm proud of the fact that I have the amazing relationship with my wife that I do.
So we get off this call here, a time machine pulls up and you can go anywhere in the history of time and see one event. Just witness it. You won't affect history, you just get to see it. What would you love to have seen happen?
Wow. Of all of history, if I could go back to any time in all of history and see anything happen, oh, I would go back to a time before civilization existed and societal structures. I would go back to the time when we were just people in a jungle crossing paths with each other and saying, "Oh my God, that looks like me."
Yeah,
And you go, and we can't talk. We're
yeah,
just, we're like, is it dangerous?
yeah,
And they're thinking, is it dangerous? I just think there's a lot of clarity about what life actually is before we created structures and religions and all these ideologies and things that we've been told we're supposed to believe.
absolutely.
I think our most natural state is being out in the woods and nobody telling us what we're supposed to think we're supposed to be.
Yeah, that would be nice. So, what's the best thing about living in Michigan?
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Nature, nature. I mean, I live 10 minutes from Torch Lake, which is the Caribbean blue. It's one of the most beautiful lakes. I mean, it is the most beautiful lake in Michigan.
yeah. So, if anyone wants to reach out, learn more, useyourstory.com, is that the best place to go?
Yeah, if they want to book me to speak, for their event or something, just go to blownupguy.com, because I'm a guy and I got blown up. It's easy to remember. And that's
Yeah,
where you can see about all my keynote speeches I do for different companies and organizations. But if people want to learn how to share their story and make a difference and even make money doing it, basically do what I do, they can go to useyourstory.com, and I have a free resource there called the Share Your Story Roadmap. It's a one-page PDF and a video that goes with it, a very short video, and I'll teach you how to make your first $500 speaking by positioning your story from a place of value. So just go grab that at useyourstory.com if that's of any interest.
right on. Brian, this has been great, man. Thank you for your story. Thank you for just doing what you do. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. Best of luck.